is Tabletop Weekly, and we are the partners of Solarian Games.
I am Jason.
And I am Peter. And this is our 50th episode, man. 50 straight, 50 weeks in a row, not missing a week yet.
I can't do 5-0 with my fingers.
This week, we're going to be talking about Ever and Anon publishing their first issue, Gary Gygax's Lost Castle, Diegetic?
You sure you wanted to read this week?
Yeah, I don't know. Diegetic. I guess that's the word. Advanced. I'd never seen that word before, by the way, before this week. What is it? That's a good question. And Museum of D&D planned for Florida. Right. Another one. No. So let's start. This first story is very near and dear to Jason's heart. We did a whole thing on it. 46, something like that. I can't remember.
Yeah, so this is a new era begins. An old era has passed and a new era begins. So it's kind of unusual to have a first issue of a small zine be a big news story, but it is, because Ever and Anon is the continuation spiritually of Alarms and Excursions, which was the first, I think it's fair to say, the first gaming zine, tabletop gaming zine ever made. First tabletop role-playing game zine ever made, because of course Avalon Hill's The General goes back to the 1960s and but that was all about Avalon Hill board games and war games. Alarms and Excursions, that we talked about before, was started in 1973 or 74. This has had to be 74 because they didn't start it until Dungeons and Dragons existed.
Right.
And, we've talked all about it. We've talked about Lee, and we mentioned the fact that after 50 years, over 50 years, it was ending. Mm-hmm. And so as a way to keep going, the contributors to Alarms and Excursions have chosen another Shakespearean phrase to name the new zine, Ever and Anon. So very clever, because it was A&E and now it's E&A.
Yes, nice.
Yeah, I love that. And I mean, let's just take a moment and appreciate that logo.
It's nice. It's very
beautiful. Pretty. Yeah. That
and
was.
If you're listening, it's a very frilly, and like the font is really good. Nice font, not cheesy. They picked a good one. Mm-hmm. And then the accents, it's got these gold accents on it, which are really nice. It's good.
Yeah, it's just gorgeous. And so. Yeah, so let's just kind of go back to what an APA-zine really is, because I think that might be confusing to some people. You know what zines are, you know what magazines are, but APA-zines are a different thing. And in fact, technically Ever and Anon is an APA. It's not an APA-zine. And so let me explain that.
Okay.
An APA is an amateur press association. And an APA-zine is a zine that one person makes to put into an APA. So Ever and Anon is the association. That's the Amateur Press Association. They're called Ever and Anon. And what it is that each one of the contributors, then they have their own zines that they make, and all those zines get collated together into this one big unit, which is the Ever and Anon APA. So, that it becomes kind of clear when you read this one. If you look at old issues of Alarms and Excursions, like from the 1970s, things were a bit more haphazard, and it wasn't always clear. You just would have a bunch of typewritten pages, and they're stapled together. Where do they start? Where do they end? Now, these are actually very, very cleanly done. And I'm going to go and flip through it a little bit here. First, let me kind of talk a little bit about some of the contributors to this too, because there's some really cool contributors in here. So there are Atronarch. So not everybody goes by a regular name. Atronarch is kind of really known in the OSR community, really active on the Knights and Knaves Ale House forum. George Phillies, who has been around since the very beginning.
Say that. What is he? What is that contributor of a what?
You're asking what? Okay, well let me just go through this. So George,
sorry.
I made a pronunciation note for myself here. So George Phillies is has the first zine in the first issue, and his zine is called A Rhodomontadulous Promenade. Rhodomantade is I've looked up how to pronounce it, but I didn't look up what it meant. So, and you'll see this a lot. A lot of these have just really flowery, wonderful. You could really imagine all of this in the world Gary Gygax loved. So at a Rhodomantadulus promenade, and at the beginning of George Philly's, he explains a little bit about his own background. So I'm just going to read his background, just part of it, because it's long. I'll just read a short bit. He says, I started on board wargaming in 1958 with Avalon Hill's Tactics 2. I played my first computer game, Space War, in 1963 on the original PDP-1 using what I was told was the first computer joystick.
It was the first computer game, arcade game ever made.
Yeah.
I know that.
Yes, exactly. 1963. So he played it when it was made. And I think he must have been at MIT at the time, because he says the next year I founded the MIT Strategic Game Society. So he was one of the early members of the International Federation of Wargaming. So people who know their history about gaming will know that the IFW is where Gary Gygax did a lot of his original writing. It's kind of where he got the taste for publishing. And so this guy, George, was writing then at the time. He was the first person to write in a bigger zine, the American Wargamer, to announce that D&D was not actually just a set of miniature rules, but something new. So you've got somebody with some real cred here.
Yeah, no doubt, man.
Yeah. So really cool stuff there. I'm just going to say a couple more things. So at the beginning of this is a nice little, what is this? So what is this? A newbie's guide to APAs. It's like a cocktail party, but all written out. I love that description. And, you know, I'm going to say this about reading Ever and Anon. It felt almost like I was intruding, you know, because it's a series of zines, and then there's people commenting on each other's zines within it. And each person, that you can tell that there's history, there's in-jokes, there's all these things that go between the people who make this. And yes, it's put out for anybody to read it, but it really feels like you're stepping into a party.
Nice. That's kind of cool.
Yeah.
That's kind of cool.
I think I felt so much more connected to what was going on in this zine than I ever do being on a Facebook group or a Reddit subreddit or some sort of forum. Those things feel really fleeting. And they even mention this in the beginning of it. They say the app, one advantage of the APA model is longevity. That's a word.
Yeah, longevity, yes.
Yeah. Because it's not the kind of thing where a website's just going to go down and it's gone, or some social media company decides they're done hosting it and it's gone too. You know, these are things that people collect, they keep, whether on PDF or paper, they have their own copies of it. And we can look, you know, back 50, 60 years and see these conversations in this cocktail party. It's like it's a cocktail party that's been going on for 60 years.
So do you think that these, like, folks that write these things together, they got to, okay, I was gonna say, do you think they've got to get together at cons and stuff? They meet up at cons, right?
You know, I wonder. I'll have to ask more, because I found out about Ever and Anon in a Facebook group for Alarms and Excursions, and they had a Discord invite, so I joined, and I've been in there talking with folks. I haven't seen anybody say, "Oh, I'll see you next week at such and such con," but I figure, who knows? Who knows? I mean, there are communities that never meet, but I hope they do. I hope they do.
Well, I mean, I think that's, you know, like there was a time that came around where I was thinking, what's the point of going to cons? Because nowadays with the internet, I felt like the internet kind of killed cons. Obviously it didn't, but this was something I was going through at the time, thinking, because I'm like, what's the point of going? Like, normally you'd go to a convention so you can get stuff you can't get anywhere else. Like, because I remember back in the early days when I would go to cons, like, you could get stuff that just, because there was no internet to go buy it and go find it or whatever, you could get stuff that you couldn't get anywhere. Like you literally, if you didn't go to the con, you didn't get it. And then, you know, of course, you know, I was thinking like, well, I'm a traveler. I'm not going to get better prices because you can get better prices online anyway on
Right.
sales and stuff. So what's the point? Well, the point is the camaraderie. That's good. That actually is what kept it alive. So I'm glad, and that's the best part, really.
I mean, it's a
It's
convention.
nice.
What does convention means? It means to convene, to
Yeah,
come together.
yeah. So it's nice. Because I was
Um,
also thinking like chat rooms and stuff. But as we've gotten older and spent a little more time, you know, on the internet and seeing what all that turns into. Yeah, screw chat room.
yeah, yeah,
I'd rather
exactly.
talk to people in the bar.
And this kind of thing, an APA, I should say, not an apazine, an APA is the antidote to, I think, social media, you know, because social media is all about complete lack of nuance, about people shouting over each other and not listening to each other, and, you know, competing for attention.
Right.
Whereas an APA, each person has the time to sit down and make a really thoughtful, lengthy zine of whatever they want to make, and presumably take the time to read each other's. You get
Yeah.
to know people a lot better than you do in a world where it's all about the likes.
Yeah, that's good.
So
I
let
like
me
it.
tell about a few of the other things that are in here that I thought were kind of worth noting.
Okay.
In this particular first issue, there is another APA who they have included in here. There's another group called A Gentle Stroll. So they have issue 1 of A Gentle Stroll contained within this.
All right.
Although they said that's just going to be a temporary thing, just sort of it's a way of, I guess, just expanding community. You know, we'll help
Right.
you, you help us, that kind of thing. I mean, I don't know, help, because this is for fun. Okay, so they have some of the other ones in here. There is one by Atronach called Overlord's Annals, which is game reports. So that's kind of fun. You can just kind of go through and see all of his, the reports from his games, and they're pretty fun. Then Patrick Riley has, I'm going to try to pronounce this one.
Mhm.
His zine is called Quasi Pseudo Ludognostication. I know what quasi means. I know what pseudo means. I know what gnostication is. I don't want to know what ludo means, but it's quasi pseudo ludo gnostication.
Awesome.
And this is a much more personal one. A lot of just his own thoughts on different games, different things, what's going on in his life, which is kind of nice to know. I even see in here there's some people leaving comments from the last issue of Alarms and Excursions, because you typically leave comments about the last zine, and of course it's over, so there's nowhere to write it, so they write them in Ever and Anon.
Nice.
There's another zine in here called Dreadsword, which is all very, very AD&D. This is somebody who runs AD&D completely by the book, which I think is great. Using all the subsystems, everything else. So that's a lot of fun to read this very old school AD&D player. Here's another one called The Phoenix Nest by Michael Kuehl, which is about Mundus Volt Decipi, which I don't know that game. And it says it goes back to Troll Crusher in the 1970s and 80s. So that's fun. Something's going on in here. There's something I noticed that was kind of crazy, where they went in. There's photos in this which you wouldn't get in old zines. They had found something like some copies of this game Temporium and another one called Alternate Realities that usually go for around $50 online, and somehow at a thrift store somebody had unloaded literally dozens or maybe even hundreds of these, and they were selling them for about $1. I don't know what that is. That's cool.
What were the two titles?
The two titles were, first ones, they're both from Rio Grande Games. First one was Temporium. Second one was Alternate Realities.
Sounds familiar.
Yeah. So a lot of stuff here about Phoenix Con, things like that. There's another one called The Dragon's Beard, which is there's tons of extra traits for NPCs, extra content for things like that. So, you get gaming content, you get personal thoughts, different things. Another one called Age of Menace, which is a much more personal one, and then goes into lots of interesting just histories of people that are relevant to the gaming world or just to their own games. And then there's also a traveler play by email report from the Plankwell campaign from a couple of GMs. It just goes on and on. There's all sorts of different things in here. So, yeah, I feel like I've had my eyes opened anew to APAs, and it feels much better than the internet.
Yeah. Yeah.
Even though the internet is what it's used to distribute it. So
I know.
very excited to see Ever and Anon, and I think people should look for this. The only thing I would say is if you end up reading Ever and Anon or decide to join their Discord or maybe even make your own zine, just remember you're walking into a cocktail party that's been running for over 50 years, and listen before you speak.
Yeah. Yep. That's really cool. It's funny because you upmised all this. I didn't even know this was a thing. Like I had kind of heard of Alarms and Journeys in passing, but I really wasn't
Alarms
sure.
and Excursions.
Sorry,
Really
Arms.
important.
God
There
damn it.
was a horrible counterfeit piece of garbage that used the names Alarms and Journeys. I won't bother with
Sorry.
the name of the garbage that made that garbage.
Sorry, I meant right.
Yes. This is what people do when garbage people rip off other people. They want to be confused with the good people.
Yeah, I know. I hear you. But yeah, when you clued me in, I was like, oh, I've heard of this before. Like,
Mhm.
but I didn't know what it was. I had no idea. And then you explained to me, I'm like, what? What is APA? What people just send stuff in and they just staple it together? What? And that's
Yeah.
kind of cool. I think it's cool. I honestly think it's cool. It's very punk rock. I love it.
It is. It's punk before there was punk.
Yeah. All right, so let's get to the next one. Christopher Clark on Castle Wolfmoon and Gary Gygax. So this was a video interview.
Yeah.
And apparently Castle Wolfmoon was something that Gary was working on, prior to like his getting out of the, like, when was he working on that? Like
Let me give a little background here. So Chris Clark, first of all, great guy. I only know him from Gary Cons, run into him at Gary Cons, and we talked a couple times, but I really like the guy. He also goes back to the beginning. I don't know if he was at Gen Con 0, but he was at like Gen Con 1. He's a friend of Gary's going back to the early wargaming days. He knew him. I think Chris and Gary were friends before he made D&D.
Okay.
And
well, that would have been, okay.
Yeah. So they go way back, and they didn't work together in the 70s. Chris was kind of doing his own thing. Somewhere around 1978, he made a game called Inner City because some of his friends didn't want to play D&D because they didn't care about fantasy. And he's like, well, what if you could play Starsky and Hutch and I gave you a gun? And they're like, well, that sounds fun. So he made Inner City. And then I guess, according to him, the way it worked back in the day is that people would often name their game company after their first game.
Right.
That makes sense, right? So he started Inner City Games, and he made a bunch of different things, very cool stuff. Some of it goes for a lot of money on eBay now, things from back in the day. And I think Fuzzy Heroes was another of his big ones. That's really fun. So then after sometime in the late 80s, early 90s, it was just after Gary had been booted from TSR after the whole ambush at Sheridan Springs happened and everything else, that Chris and Gary decided to get together and make some stuff.
Okay. All right. So that's the time period we're talking about.
Yeah. So in the 90s, they started making things together, and they actually wrote a few adventures for D&D. And I probably going to get this one wrong. I think they were writing 3rd edition adventures. They were basically they were saying, well, why don't we write for whatever people are buying and put some of that out.
Right.
Of course, Gary had his own new game system that was going on, Legendary Adventures, and so he wanted to focus more on that. But he and Chris published at least 2 adventures together. And then they were working on a 3rd, and Chris wrote what he thought was a lot at first, and he sent it off to Gary, and Gary was like, oh, no problem. Here, let me just write really quickly. And like pretty quickly after that, he sends back another like 100,000 words.
Oh
So
my
all
God.
of a sudden, where Chris thought they were going to do 50-50, Chris's version of it was like he maybe wrote a quarter of it and Gary wrote the other 3/4 of it.
Jeez. Okay.
And they never got around to publishing it, and it got put
Mhm.
away. Things happen, time goes on, blah, blah, blah. And then recently, a friend of Chris's was looking at his computer. He's like, "What's this Castle Wolfmoon thing?" He's like, "Oh, that's something I was working on with Gary. We never published it." And they're like, "Wait, you have an unpublished Gary Gygax D&D adventure sitting on your hard drive,
Yeah,
and
that's
you're
bad.
just going to forget about it?"
Right.
He's like, "No, I can do it sometime." And so like, put this thing out.
Yeah.
So after many ups and downs and backs and forths and here's and there's, he is now releasing it. And so this is why there was an interview about it.
Nice. Okay, cool. Very cool. Yeah, that goes way back, man. Jesus.
It's really amazing. I mean, I don't know. I watched the interview.
Right.
I don't know who was interviewing him. I will be generous and just say they probably didn't know much about the history of gaming.
Right.
You know,
Right.
for not everybody does. It's totally cool. It was just kind of funny to hear them say things like, I heard that back in the day you would play D&D differently, whether or not you subscribed to the Wizard magazine. And Chris was like, "Do you mean Dragon magazine?" Yeah.
It was I watched part of the interview as a young guy.
I didn't see it. I listened to it in the car, so I wasn't looking at it. So yeah, it's okay. I'm not going to make fun of somebody for not knowing things. That was just a funny moment to me.
I mean, it's kind of funny you didn't know that. That is
Yeah, I mean, if you're trying to do interviews with people about gaming, I mean, I like to look stuff up first, but
yeah.
What are you going to do?
So Chet says that apparently Chet's played Inner City, said it's a blast.
Well, I would love to try it. I mean,
Yeah.
I think we should try to get somebody to run it at ModCon. I think that would be a good time.
I think so. That would be awesome. If anybody has it and can run it, that'd be awesome.
Well, I'll get a hold of Chris. I'll just ask him, does he know somebody who would want to run it? Because he's out in Milwaukee and we can't afford to fly him out to run a game. But yeah, so basically we've got a little more information on it here, right?
Yeah.
But
it looks like he's going to do it. It looks like he's actually going to publish this thing and put it out.
So, yeah, there was a little bit of back and forth because I guess Luke Gygax had made a comment saying, I don't remember my dad working on this. I don't think that he worked on that. And Chris probably inadvisedly didn't take that too well. I mean, the truth was, look, you don't know everything somebody's doing.
No.
So, he's like, look, the simple thing would have been, yeah, he was working on it. Maybe he didn't tell everybody everything he was doing. But Chris came back with something that was a bit rude. And, I think the two had to kind of patch things up over that.
Oh, wow.
But whatever needed to get done. Okay, Chet in the comments is saying there's actually been a huge legal battle between them. I'm not going to dive into it because Luke is a good friend. I like Chris a lot. So I'm going to stay well out of that one. But I think anytime we get something great put out, especially something Gary worked on, that's good for everybody.
Yeah, I hope they resolve whatever.
Yeah, I hope they have. I don't know, Chet in the comments if you want to tell us if you know any more about how it got resolved. But the important thing is he is putting it out now, so I'm looking forward to seeing it. I would love to. I mean, Castle Wolfmoon. That's not a very Gygaxian name, but
no,
looking forward to seeing it.
Yeah. All right. Go to the next one. This one's cool. Once I saw this, because you found most of the stories. Well, you actually found all the stories this week. Once I was looking through this one, I was like, let's talk about this one. So this is what's the title we got here? Here we go. Diegetic advancement. What is it?
Well, have you heard people talk about diegetic music in films?
I've never heard that word before.
Oh, it just like if you in a movie, you have two different types of music that happen. There's diegetic and I guess non-diegetic. So diegetic just means the music is actually playing in the scene, in the world.
Oh,
so if you hear music because you're sitting in a car and you're listening to the radio, that's diegetic. Right. If you hear music because it's on the soundtrack. You're sitting on the beach, and somebody with a saxophone in the '80s starts playing over the top of you. That's
Right.
non-diegetic.
Gotcha. Okay.
Yeah, it's a very academic sounding word for a very simple concept.
Right. Okay. All right. So apparently there's preferences, and and this makes sense. This is something that I know in the back of my head, but I never thought about putting it down on paper.
Yeah, before we run down these, so first of all, I want to say, if you're listening, there's a really cute cartoon on here by one of my favorite artists, Skullboy, of a Skullboy, a little happy-looking skeleton with a no written on his baseball cap and a six-sided dice. So yeah, this is not news. This is something that we not unearthed. It was written maybe a year ago, but we just thought it was really interesting because they were talking about this split in gaming, that some systems, that D&D is very much non-diegetic, which means that when you advance in D&D, it's very mechanical. There is experience points and there's levels, and you level up and you get all your stuff when you level up, and so on and so on. It's very mechanical. Non-diegetic is a game like Traveler, where you don't have any levels. You gain more skills as you go along, and you functionally improve, but nobody ever says, I've got a level 8 Traveler character. It just moves up diegetically.
You are where you are.
Yeah. And for the record, Top Secret has always been non-diegetic since the beginning. It started with areas of knowledge. I'm not sure what SI did, unfortunately. And we don't have any levels either. We have a thing called a clearance level, but it's not a level. A clearance level just says you're able to get, better equipment. You get more difficult missions, so it kind of falls in a little bit of a gray area between the two. But functionally, we don't have levels in the game. So we're diegetic. And so whoever did this, I think Skullboy, did Skullboy write the article or just work with this person? They put a fun little thing in here that's looked at all the different elements of a game that where the spectrum could be. And there's nothing about this that says one is better than the other. No. In fact, do you want to read what Skullboy's little character is saying about the chart?
Yeah, he says, if I see any of you mouth breathers try and use this chart to win a useless argument on some fuckstick website, I will personally piss in your mailbox. I love that. That's good. Because it's true. I mean, none of these are better or worse. It's whatever you like doing.
Yeah.
I keep telling people all the time, it's just a game, man. It's a game. We're supposed to have fun. What are you supposed to do? Whatever makes it fun.
So let's go down the list. We got what, 3, 6. We got about 12 different spectrums that can go on. So the first one is simple versus complex character creation. What do you like?
I guess for them, again, a lot of these are, I'm just going to caveat this. I'll never say it. I won't say it again in the conversation. It depends on what we're playing. And I like some things sometimes and other things other times, but I'm going to just go with
one thing and always stick to that. And you stand by that so I can attack you for it.
Right. But I'm going to say what I generally like. So
how
generally
can I attack your opinions if they change.
Right. Just when you think you know the answer, I change the question. That's a Rowdy Piper quote.
Oh, okay. And hey, complex in the chat. Let's hear what you guys think too. What do you like? Simple or complex character creation?
Yeah, I like complex. I like to really get in. I think making my character is like the most fun first hour of a campaign.
Yeah, I don't like doing it with other people necessarily. I mean, there are some fun ones. So Traveler is a good example. Everybody likes to say Traveler is where you can die in character creation.
That's old though, right? That's not anymore, isn't it?
Well, I don't know.
I thought they got rid of that.
It's fun if you.
But it's fun. It's fun. And I did, of course. I did. My character died the first one I made.
Character creation in Traveler is kind of a mini game of its own. As you're deciding the things. Normally, though, I do prefer complex character creation because I, like you said, I enjoy sitting at home with the rules and just sitting down for a couple of hours with a book and just imagining this character as they're coming to life. It's fun.
Yeah.
You know, simple character creation to me means I'm going to play a very low stakes, simple game. So it's okay for, you know, if I'm just playing at a convention one time, but no, I like some crunchy character build.
Right. Right. We generally, my group generally tends to do long campaigns. So taking the time to build a complex character in the beginning generally leads into a better campaign, like a long-term campaign, because you get more involved, you get more,
Yeah.
I don't know, into the making the character. Like we did a campaign one time where we had, we could take different professional packs. So if you say, you know, as a soldier for a certain period of time, just like in Traveler, right?
Mhm.
You could take as many as you wanted, but you couldn't go over a certain age. So you could take up to a certain age because each one had so many years with it. And you had to write at least a paragraph about what happened during that thing that made it
That's cool.
important.
Yeah.
And so I loved it. I really loved that. I mean, I think I went overdid it, and my DM never read everything I wrote, and I didn't blame him because I think I wrote like, I don't know, like almost 10,000 words on the background of this character. And I did
Yeah,
the thing.
as your DM, I'm not reading that.
Right. No. And I told him, I was like, you don't have to read it. I'll just tell you what it is. I was
But you
like,
know what, though?
for me, it was fun for me, and it colors everything I'm going to do during the campaign.
We talked about this before on a phone call because, you know, I was talking about a game game rules that I'm working on right now. And I'm writing a bunch of background that I don't plan to put in the game.
Right. Yeah.
Because sometimes it's just about knowing it yourself.
Mhm.
You know, there's that trope about somebody showing up with their character's 14-page backstory.
Yeah. Right.
Don't do that. Don't expect other people to read it. But if you want to write it for yourself and just know it, so it's in your head, that's fine. That's actually really fun.
Right. It's like those actors who they'll have a character for a movie and they'll write this backstory, but the character's only on screen for like 2 minutes and they have like 3 lines, and the person says, "Yeah, but to deliver those 3 lines properly, I had to know who I was." I'm like, that's
exactly.
cool.
Okay, wait. What was the name of the mom on the actor who played the mom on Leave It to Beaver?
June. No, her real name. That was her character name was June.
Barbara Billingsley.
There it is.
Right. Yep. So I was watching an interview with Barbara Billingsley the other day. Do you remember when she was in Airplane and she was like, "I speak jive"?
Yes, I love that.
The whole joke was that it's like, oh, here comes June Cleaver from the 1950s, and there's 2 guys on the plane, and they're, you know, one of them's feeling bad, and he can't explain anything to the doctor because he speaks jive, and she's like, "Excuse me, stewardess, I speak jive," and she comes on. You know, I'm not going to do it, obviously.
Yeah.
But anyways, it's just a short little scene. It's iconic, but she in the interview said that when they contacted her, she got the joke. She's like, "I get it. I'm the Beaver's mom. You want me to speak jive," but she actually went and like talked to some of her. She went and like got a hold of some of her black friends, and she's like, "What do you know about jive?" And they're like, "Let us connect you with people who know way more jive than we do." And she had like almost like a jive coach.
Oh, that's awesome.
And she was like hanging out, like, you know, going out to like black clubs and hanging out and trying to like get the ear for it and everything. And she's like, "I know it was just for a scene in a comedy, but I just wanted to do it right."
That's cool. That's really cool.
Barbara Billingsley was cool.
Yeah. Some of those old school actors and actresses were pretty cool. Some of them were pieces of crap, but some of them are really cool. Okay. So set track advancement or diegetic advancement, and I like diegetic advancement 100%.
I am absolutely 50-50 on it because I love diegetic advancement in our game. I think it makes a ton of sense because we run a fairly realistic game, you know, and there are no levels in real life. But I love first edition AD&D. It's very set track advancement, and I like the digital nature of it as opposed to analog. You know, the click, 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 as opposed to the smooth sweep of the watch hand. So for me, it's a split right down the middle.
Okay. I'm going to tell you that is the biggest reason why I got out of D&D. Like, cause I started playing D&D in 1980, and I played it, I think, till I was about 16. So about 6 years. And then I kind of got out of it and never went back. And part of it was that non-diegetic, that yeah, the
Yeah.
non-diegetic advancement. I did not like level system. Like
Fair
I
enough.
just didn't like it.
No, that's fair. That's fair.
Yeah.
I mean, it is kind of a pain when it's time to level up and you have to sit and do all the things at once.
Mm-hmm.
Um, and I will say I despise automatic advancement,
Mm.
because there's a split. I think you pretty much decide at the beginning of the campaign, if you're playing in a 5e campaign, are we going to do milestone or experience advancement, right? So milestone is we've all gotten to a certain point, everybody level up today, we're all level 4 now.
Mm-hmm.
I hate that. It feels like I didn't earn any of it. I was just in the group, so now we all get to go up a level. Everybody gets to go to 4th grade now.
Yeah.
And I want people to be rewarded for the experience and for the actions they do. So that is the one place that I break off from it. I do not like milestone advancement.
Okay. All right. Let's see. Let's next one. Mini world builders or single world builder.
So I guess what is that, like the players do it versus the GM does it?
I'm gonna say yeah. Okay, so I'm willing to bet that means like those games we've talked about before. Many of the games we've talked about on here before, where you're gonna get together before the thing, and we're all gonna have input and stuff like that. Versus someone creating something that you all are gonna be in, or there's a setting that you have to play.
Yeah.
I'm gonna lean towards single world. I'm not super big, although I do see why people would really love that, and I see where it could be good, but I've seen too many times where it just gets to be a pain in the butt when everybody has input on it.
But yeah, I think it depends on the GM.
Depends on the group, right?
It depends on the GM, right?
Yeah.
Because I've played in games with very monomaniacal GMs who have this whole world in their head, and it sucks. It's complex. You don't know what's going on, and they get mad when you don't do it right because it's their world. And I'm like, stop it! I don't want to be playing in this. But
they're also trying to tell a story, and you're just the puppets in their story.
Yeah. Oh, and that does not limit itself to just adventure gaming. Story gaming. You would think story gaming, because it's more collaborative, would prevent that. But I've played Powered by the Apocalypse games where the GM is, you feel like you're just sitting there helping them tell their own story.
Yeah, I can't stand that. I can't. That's not going to work.
Yeah. So it completely depends on the GM. If it's a good GM, like friend of mine, Kevin Andrew Murphy. Oh, what a good GM. I mean, he's a professional writer. He's a novelist. He actually writes some of the novels for George R.R. Martin for his Wild Card series. So he knows how to world build. I will just go down. I'll go into the world he wants to go into.
Right.
But, or my friend Gabe, who is a professional DM, and, so he's putting together really good worlds. I'll go into the world he wants to go into. But if I'm not confident in the GM, then yeah, let's get some collaborative world building.
Right. Yeah. David Benavides says he likes collaboration. He also was sort of he said 50-50 on diegetic or set track. We asked people to give us comments. We haven't been reading them.
I'm reading them. I just ignore all the dumb ones. No, these are good. These are good. And I do, like Ed Lopez in the earlier one said, I love poring over the rules to create a character. It invests you more. I totally agree with that.
Yeah.
All right, next one is Gonzo versus Grounded. So, okay, first of all, I'm glad to see it expressed that way as Gonzo versus Grounded, because the game Nick Seidler is working on, Merle Rasmussen's Hacknoia, is Gonzo.
Gonzo, yeah.
And I wasn't sure that I liked the word Gonzo because I wasn't sure that it meant what he wanted it to mean. Because when you think Gonzo, if you think like the Hunter S. Thompson version of Gonzo, Gonzo meant POV, so in Hunter S. Thompson's writings, he would go and spend all his time with the Hells Angels in order to write about them, or whatever it was he was writing about. And that's what Gonzo meant. So I was like, that's not what we're doing here. But if Gonzo means wackadoodle, then yeah okay, great. So Gonzo versus Grounded, I will say that 75% of the time, I want to play a very grounded game. I want to use logic to fill in the gaps in the game. But yeah, David Benavides says the same thing. He said, well, the opposite. He says Gonzo 75%. So we're basically on opposite. He likes Gonzo 75% of the time. I like Grounded 75% of the time. But that other 25% of the time, yeah, I love a good Gonzo game when it's good.
I'm gonna agree with you there. I'm in the same boat. Like I generally tend to like Grounded, but I also do enjoy a really good Gonzo game from time to time.
Yeah. All right. What's our next one?
Like I love playing Paranoia is fun. I can only do it once in a while.
Yeah, Paranoia. I think that's the thing. I don't want to play a campaign Gonzo.
Right.
But I really when Bob Goodenough runs a Paranoia game, it's Gonzo as heck, and he's the best Paranoia. What are they called in Paranoia?
I don't know.
GM, whatever.
Right.
He's the best Paranoia GM I've played with. If you ever go to a convention and you see Bob Goodenough is running a Paranoia game, get in that game.
Yeah. Oh, shocker, Scott. Scott says Grounded 99%.
I totally expected that. Yeah, I get that, Scott. Scott's a very grounded player.
Yes, he is. All right. Next, Violence versus Peace.
You tell me.
I'm fucking crazy violent. I love violent games. Now again, it depends on the system and the game we're playing, but I generally, if we're gonna play a game, I like games that have a lot of action and stuff in them.
Yeah. Again, this is going to be it depends for me, because it depends on how well the game is written. Most of the time, it's really, really hard to write a good game that's all about peacefulness.
Mm-hmm.
So most of the time, I'm going to say violence, because I want to get in there, murder hobo, kill things, take their stuff, run out the door. And usually when there's a game that's written not to be about that, it's way too it's all about, let's talk about feelings for 3 hours.
No, I don't do that.
I don't want to do that. I don't want to go to group therapy.
Right.
But it is possible to write a game that is not violent and has good mechanics and is really fun. Then I love it. I would rather play a game that had less violence in it. It's just that there's very few that are written well. So most of the time I'm going to go for kill orcs and loot their stuff.
I feel like it's a hard thing to do, right? To make a game that has rules that will support things that aren't just kill monsters, take their stuff, right? That's easy to do. I think the doing the other is extremely hard, which is why I don't think we see a lot of it, because it's difficult to get right.
The best example I would give of peace on that one is good investigator games. I mean, right. Cthulhu games are very peaceful.
Generally,
you're investigating. When the crazy things happen, it might not be violence. It might just be unspeakable horrors that twist your mind. But it's not the same as violence.
It's funny. Top Secret really isn't really a violent. It tends to lean on the less violence, because violence leads to character death really quickly, really easily. Yeah. And there's a lot of stuff you can do that's not, there's the vast majority of what you're doing shouldn't be violent, because let's face it, spies who are really good are never seen.
Right. The gray man, the perfect spy, could not get a waiter's attention in a restaurant.
Right. James Bond is the worst spy ever. He's horrible.
Oh, yeah. Oh.
He's the worst friggin' spy ever. He's like, what's your name? Bond. He tells her, this is my real name, and this is my spy name, and I'll just use it over and over again. And
there's a whole
the worst spy ever.
I saw a comedian do a whole bit on why James Bond is the worst spy ever, and I was dying laughing. Just all the things from all the movies. But yeah,
now, would have been really cool. What would be really cool is if somebody did a James Bond like movie. Let's say they started it out and it wasn't like James Bond, it was something else, because it wouldn't work if you used that character. But you made it so everybody knew exactly what you were doing. You're making like a James Bond movie.
Yeah.
And you get about 3/4 of the way through the movie and you realize he's purposely doing all this because he's the distraction. He's not actually doing the real spying.
Oh, I love it.
How cool would that be?
There's another spy sneaking around in the background,
actually doing the work.
That kind of sounds like a Johnny English movie.
Okay.
Okay.
That would be good.
All right. So let's go on to the next. Let's go on to the next one. Narrative action versus tactical action.
Ooh. I'm 50-50.
Yeah. Same here. Same here. Well, I think what it is I don't want to play a game that's turning into a board game.
Mm-mm.
You know, so tactical action is fine as long as it's not as long as it's not turning it into a board game.
Dude, if I want tactical action, I'm going to play BattleTech or Car Wars
or a war game or something.
Or a war game.
You know?
Yeah.
I'm not there to spend all my time trying to figure out like how many steps can I take before I get a opportunity attack.
Ed Lopez says, did you see the rumor that Tom Holland is being cast in a TV version of Bond?
Right, because Amazon bought the rights to Bond.
Look, I love Tom Holland. I'll watch him in anything.
I think it would be good. Well, okay, so I saw that Villeneuve, I think Denis Villeneuve is going to be the director for the new Bond films.
Oh, really?
Okay. Is that the right name? He did Dune and Blade Runner 2. I don't know what Blade Runner 2 was really called, but you know, it sucked.
Yeah.
Dune was good. Blade Runner sucked. I don't want to see this guy making Bond. I think he's just going to get gritty and dark and boring. But the point is, we've got all these rumors about who's going to play Bond, but whoever it is for the films has not been cast.
Right.
It just hasn't. So Tom Holland in the TV version, I'm in with that.
I can do that. Yeah.
I'm down with that. Tom Holland is cool. Wait. Hold on. Wait. Tom Holland or Tom Hollander? Which one is the short British actor with a long face who is in the thick of it and he's just really good? And who's the young guy who is dating oh my gosh, I forgot her name.
Zendaya. Zendaya. It's Tom Holland is the young guy. He's Spider-Man, the one who's dating Zendaya.
Yeah, man, I don't see him as Bond. He's a little bit too wimpy.
Unless he's like a young Bond or something. I don't know. Whatever.
Can you have a wimpy Bond?
No, come on.
I think Zendaya would be tougher than him.
Yeah.
Yeah, I'm not down with that. Brian Kowalczyk says it was Blade Runner 2049 and it didn't suck. It was awesome. You were wrong.
Hey, look, I wasn't going to say it. I was going to start that, but I actually liked it.
Well, it was terrible.
It was not as good as the first one, but I thought it was good.
It should never have had a sequel.
It didn't need one. It absolutely did not need one.
Seeing that reminded me there's another film that Steve Coogan made called speaking of things that don't need sequels, he made a film called Hamlet 2. It was the funniest thing I've ever seen.
It was a joke, right? It was like
The idea is that like some theater director decides to make Hamlet 2, and of course, you know, Hamlet dies at the end.
So right. Everybody dies.
Yeah. So
who's left? All right.
Narrative tactical, we're 50-50 on that.
Yeah. All right. So procedure play, scene play versus scene play. I don't know what that means.
I don't know what that means. I think what it means is, all right, when we were first writing the rules for Top Secret New World Order, James and I were going back and forth on whether we would have the concept of scenes.
Okay.
Meaning that instead of having an encounter, you have a scene and the action plays out from the beginning to the end of the scene and you have rules that go around all of that. I didn't like it because I thought it felt a little bit too story gamey, and James liked it because it made a good structure to kind of hang the action on.
Mm-hmm.
We ended up not doing scenes in the rules. It doesn't say anything about scenes, but there's enough in there that kind of maintained the concept of, you know, kind of going from the beginning to the end. So, yeah, I don't know. I don't know what to say. I guess procedure play because it's more realistic.
Yeah, sure. All right. Heroic versus subsistence.
Ooh, that is tough.
I prefer really heroic. Tough. I prefer heroic.
Yeah,
I like big adventures. Now, I don't mind if a campaign starts, because we've done this a lot with our group. In fact, this happens quite a bit. We start out subsistent and become heroic during the adventure. Like,
okay, there you go. There's
the campaign we're in right now. We started out as just like these. We're playing a game called Immortal, playing a setting for Immortal. We started out as humans. So for the first like 2 months that we played, we were getting our asses handed to us because we're just like people and we're like encountering monsters and stuff. And it's just like, what the hell, man? And keep losing all these battles. And then all of a sudden we were awokened as our immortal selves. And now we're not like kicking ass like on every front because a lot of
Sure.
these monsters are tough. But like against a regular human now, yeah. So that's kind of fun.
Yeah, okay. I guess I'm there too. I like the idea of going from subsistence to heroic. So in Gary Gygax's Gord the Rogue novels,
Mhm.
Gord, I really love them because Gord begins as a Dickensian ragamuffin, barely even able to survive, and slowly works his way up to becoming this incredible hero. That's very satisfying. And I see Chet in the chat is saying the same thing. I like building to heroic. So there you go.
Yep.
All right, the next one is bookkeeping versus hand waving.
Mostly hand waving. Bookkeeping sucks.
I love bookkeeping.
I hate bookkeeping.
I want to keep track of my rations. I want to know my encumbrance.
Oh,
I want to know everything. And when I shoot an arrow, I want to have to go retrieve it if I want to use it again. I love bookkeeping. The only trouble is it's hard to have a system that makes bookkeeping manageable.
mm-hmm.
It's very easy I think the players should have to be responsible for their own. If the GM has to do the bookkeeping, it's going to slow the game down incredibly. So you've got to have players responsible for their own bookkeeping. So honor system, and it's got to be something they can do without too much trouble. So if you can make the system work, I do want it to matter when you run out of water.
Yeah. So all right. So then I guess I'll rewind that a little bit. I like the mostly hand waving. So where you can run out of supplies, and yes, you could, like, you have to keep count of your arrows and stuff. But like, I don't like having to write down the kilograms of every friggin' item I'm carrying to make sure that I'm not over encumbering myself. That kind
of course, you don't like to write kilograms. You're not a gay communist soccer player. You want to write pounds.
Oh my God. No, I don't want to write any of it. I don't want to write any, because like, I'm just like, oh my God, I'm carrying a toothbrush. I got to write down the weight of the friggin' toothbrush. Oh, do not like that. And I don't like when we're going, this is how, all right, so this is how I'll say the reason why I can say 75% or whatever works for me. If let's say you're going on a journey and you've got to supply your group, right?
Yeah.
I'm like, make whatever survival skill or whatever skill it is in the game that would indicate your knowledge of what it takes to get, have enough rations to get to wherever you're going, and the right clothes and the camping gear and all that kind of stuff. And then the rolls you make there will determine how rough your trip is and whether you're going to run out of water or not. But if you made your rolls, unless something happens, like an enemy comes up and like pokes your water canister or whatever, right, you'll be okay. I like that. And I would just say, all right, 3 gold and you all have everything you need or everything you think you need for the 10 days through the woods. That's what I like.
When I was a kid and we would go on road trips, my granddad would write down the mileage on the car at the beginning of the drive. In fact, it wasn't even road trips, just every day. He would write down the mileage. When you get gas, you write down how much gas you got, you check it against the odometer, you see what your mileage was, get everything absolutely accountant level worthy. In my basement, I have storage for all of the things we haven't unpacked from the house yet. Every box is numbered sequentially. Every box is on a shelf that has a sequential number for the shelf. The shelves then have aisles that are sequentially numbered. There is a map of the warehouse shelves of the basement on the basement wall when I go down. I have a database with photographs that shows me what's in every box. If I want to know where I have something, I can look in the database and find it. So I like crunchy.
Wow, that's pretty crunchy.
When I watch the Bob Newhart show, I cheer when Bob Newhart points out that he knows how many times he chews before he swallows.
Well, then you love Henry Rollins because he writes down every record he listens to.
Yes, I do love that.
I heard that and I was like, are you kidding me? You write down the records you listen to?
I have a list of every book I've read.
Wow.
I have, and I love in the movie High Fidelity when he goes through all of his lists. Yeah, I love lists.
All right.
Okay. Lists. When I was a kid, one of my favorite books was the Book of Lists. It came out every year, and it was just lists. I love lists.
All right. Let's move on. Lethal versus kayfabe or Fabi.
Oh, come on! Don't you like wrestling? You know about kayfabe.
I had to look. Actually, I do like wrestling. I mean, I'm actually no. I think wrestling's fun, but I don't really like it. Like I don't really watch it on a regular basis. I like the idea of wrestling more than I like wrestling
I
itself.
don't understand wrestling.
But I looked it up and I get what that is. Um,
Okay, so for anybody who doesn't know, kayfabe is the thing where in wrestling, in pro wrestling, not real wrestling, in pro wrestling, or actually pro WWE wrestling,
right.
everybody
Theatrical
knows
wrestling.
that it's fake. Everybody knows the winner has been predetermined. And everybody knows that, they're still getting hurt. I mean, they're still,
Yeah. And they're still awesome athletes.
yeah, it's hard work. It's you're
Yeah.
not just goofing around out there. But everybody gets it, and everybody just kind of agrees to pretend that it's real, and that's kayfabe.
Right.
I worry that not everybody gets the kayfabe, but that's a whole nother story.
Right. Yeah. That's kind of like, are you serious?
There's people who I think honestly believe it's real, and I don't know, and they vote, and oh my God. But anyway, where do you fall on this?
The vast majority of the time I like Lethal.
Lethal.
Mainly because it gives you more skin in the game. It makes you I feel like you enjoy your decisions more when you like if you survive, it means something. Whereas with kayfabing, if you survive, so what? You're expected to.
Yeah, no, I would not play an RPG that was kayfabe.
Right.
If there are no chances to lose, I don't want to play.
Now you've played this latest edition of D&D, and I've heard from people because I haven't played it. I've heard from people it's very hard to die in that. Is that getting into that realm?
No, it's not. It's really not.
Okay.
It depends on how you want to run it. I mean, 5e and 5.5 are more like first and second edition than they are like fourth.
Okay.
They are definitely less lethal. There's more opportunities to survive and to, not get killed and all that kind of stuff. But yeah, I mean, I've had character deaths.
Okay.
There are consequences to your actions. Yes.
I'll tell you, Savage Worlds, it's really hard to kill any character.
Yeah.
Like I like Savage Worlds, it's fun, but it doesn't make for a good campaign, and you don't feel like I don't feel like, whoa, we won. Oh my God. It's like, of course we won. Right. You know what I mean? Like,
yeah, that's the problem with 5th and 5.5 is that it does seem tilted in your favor. And it kind of feels like you didn't earn your victories.
Right.
But yeah, so lethal.
He's awesome. All right, last one. Linear or sandbox?
Sandbox.
Yeah,
Well, okay, you know what? That's not fair of me to say because I want to have a point to the story. I want there to be something to go after. I just don't want to be railroaded.
I would have said years ago, I would have said sandbox all the way. But in the past couple of years, our group, our GM is, I don't know what's going on with him, but his sandboxing has turned into side quest upon side quest upon side quest. And like me and Will are always just like, what the hell are we doing? I don't even know what we're doing. Like 6 adventures ago, we were somewhere else doing something else. We didn't finish that. And then we went to this other thing, which we didn't finish. And went to another thing, which we didn't finish. I'm just like,
yeah, that's no fun.
My God, I would just like to finish something.
Yeah. No, you know what? I guess I was reading linear as railroad. If linear means that there is a point to it all, then I want linear.
Yeah.
As long as
and again,
railroaded.
I think we're gonna probably say that anything that is either 75% or less in either direction is probably pretty good. But again, like with extremities, right? Straight up linear is probably, like you said, railroading. It probably sucks.
Yeah.
And 100% sandbox probably sucks because you have the freedom to go and do whatever. And if you get a red herring or you decide not to do a thing or whatever, you never get anything done.
Yeah. So those are all the things on the RPG preference matrix. And you know what? This is actually kind of a cool thing. If you are about to start a new game with your friends or with people you don't know as well or whatever, this would be a cool thing to give to them and see where everybody puts their mark, on the spectrum, and kind of give you an idea as a GM. If you're trying to decide what to play and you want to do something that everybody's going to have fun with, this is a kind of cool tool for that.
Yeah. Especially if you have people that are like opposed in your group, you could actually get with the two of them and just say, hey, look, I see you like this and you like this. Where can we meet in the middle so that we're all happy?
Yeah.
You know?
Cool. That was fun.
Yeah. I like that. Was a good
one.
one.
Answers in the chat for that one too.
Yeah. All right. Last story.
Museum of D&D.
Yes.
I'm sorry, I'm not laughing at the people making the Museum of D&D. It's just the whole thing. Okay, so Museum of D&D planned for Florida. Where have we heard this before?
Right.
First of all, first of all, if you want to go to a Museum of D&D, there are two really good museums you can go to that are, I would call them museums of D&D. The first one is in Lake Geneva. It is the Lake Geneva Museum, the official museum for the city or the town. And they have, well, first of all, the museum's cool. It's about the whole town. So there's a whole, if you go in, they have an entire like Main Street built out the way it would have looked 100 years ago, which is fun to walk down.
That's cool.
But then they have a little side section, which is just the D&D exhibit. They have some great stuff in there. It's really well done. Very enjoyable to look at. Not comprehensive. Just you're going to Lake Geneva, birthplace of D&D. Go to the Lake Geneva Museum and see what they got.
Right.
The other one is the Strong Museum of Play in Rochester, New York, which is about all gaming, but they have the best D&D and just tabletop RPG collection probably in any public place.
That's cool.
But we know about the other one, don't we?
We're going to skip that one, right?
Well, let's just say certain grits enthusiast from North Carolina went to Lake Geneva and bought the house that at one point had held TSR's headquarters before they moved into a real office building. Bought it cheap, put some crap in it, called it a D&D museum, and bad things happened.
Right.
And it's closed down now. So to that. But anyway,
right.
A D&D museum, I've heard a lot of people talk about wanting to do one. And usually it comes down to, I've got a really good collection. I got a big collection. I should put it where everybody can see it. And I'll call it a museum. And honestly, I think everybody who's ever said that should do it. You know, because I mean, a museum, there's no such thing as the museum of anything, right?
Right.
It's just I was on a road trip once and I saw the corn museum, a museum of corn.
Right.
I saw everything there was to see about corn. You know, you've watched The Office, right? The American Office, where they go to the anthracite museum.
Yeah. Oh my God.
Anybody can make a museum, so go ahead. Sure. So anyways, that's kind of what's going on down in Florida. Somebody with a really great collection, no particular connection to insider background stuff, but you know, just a great collection. Has been talking about doing it. So the folks who are talking about doing this are the people behind the there's a series of books called the Ultimate Unofficial Collector's Guide to D&D, volumes 1 through 4.
Okay.
I've got all of them. I picked them up. I picked up the first one at Gen Con in 2009. I met the people that were doing it. They were very nice. I like them a lot. Very sincere people, sincere fans. They know their stuff. They love D&D. So they wrote these collector's guides. I mean, for what it's worth, they're pretty decent if you want a catalog of things to check against and see what's in your collection. Apparently, they've been trying to do, well, let me jump to where we are now. They made another announcement that they're doing, I think, a Kickstarter to launch their museum.
Okay.
I noticed it because Alex Kammer had posted something about it. Alex Kammer is the owner of Gamehole Con and owner of The Gamehole and one of the premier collectors in the hobby. He knows his stuff,
Mm-hmm.
insider in every way. And so he just was like, hey, what is this? Anybody heard of it? I don't know these people. Because in the collector's world, it's a tight community. Like, I know who all the collectors are. They're all better than me. But, you know, I sit on the fringes of it, picking up their table scraps. And
Ed Laser is one of the big ones.
yeah, exactly. Ed Laser's in the community for sure. Ed Lopez is in here. So anyways, yeah, not the Corn Museum with the K, Brian. The corn as in maize. But anyway, so, you know, good folks, they know their stuff. They're trying to do it. But here's the thing. Apparently, I looked it up a little bit. In 2013, they tried to do this as well. They were looking for, I don't know, some money to do this, and didn't raise what they needed. And it didn't go the best. I mean, look, I've said before, you know, what you say once doesn't define you. So, you know, but I am going to call it out that in 2013, they were talking about it on Dragon's Foot, and they didn't get there. And somebody wrote, honestly, kind of a rude comment. They said, as they were failing to raise it, this person said, well, looks like they've made themselves $1,200 for a further dent to their reputation. Rude.
Mm-hmm.
But if you're trying to start a business in public and somebody's rude to you, you gotta, I mean, it sucks.
Yeah.
You gotta be gracious.
Yeah.
And their response was, are you an idiot? This project's not over. It's just beginning. Why do you despise us so? Is it because our books outsell yours? Oh, my husband said to let you know he looks forward to meeting you when we're in England next year.
That's a threat.
Yeah, that's a threat. That's shitty.
That's a threat. You shouldn't do that.
Don't do that. But, you know, look, that was 12 years ago. People grow. Muhammad Ali said, if you see the world the same way at age 50 that you did when you were 20, you've wasted 30 years of your life.
Yes, exactly. Oh, yeah. Yeah.
You know what? Let people grow. Just because somebody said something crappy on an internet forum 12 years ago, whatever. I'm just glad the
internet wasn't around when I was a young man.
Oh my God, I wouldn't be able to get a job.
Right. No shit.
I mean, I would have always gotten great jobs because everything I did at that age was perfect. Shut up.
Yeah. Oh, yeah, me too. Prove me otherwise.
Prove it. Did you see the video of their collection?
I did not watch the video.
All right. So they did a nice walkthrough. I will say it is a beautiful collection. I would be happy to have many of the things they have. For one thing, they've completed their Dragon magazine run.
Ooh, nice.
I know. One of these days, I'm just going to have to suck it up, sell my truck, and buy the magazines I'm missing.
Oh, shit.
No. But
I think, didn't Mary buy James a first edition?
You mean a first issue? Or what first
issue?
Issue one of Dragon?
I think so.
Yeah, maybe. I mean, I have a couple.
Okay.
So, you know, I have the hardest ones to get. I have number 1, 2, 3, 4. It's the in-between ones. I don't have I don't know. Trust me, there's a spreadsheet, but whatever. I've a few of them around like the 20s and the teens, and unfortunately they go for, you know, a bunch of money.
Right.
Anyway, they have a great collection, these folks. It's beautiful. I take issue with some of their preservation techniques.
Oh boy.
You know, they had stuff just like mounted on the wall that I wouldn't have mounted on the wall. My biggest concern is they want to do this in Orlando because I guess that's where they live.
Mm-hmm.
What happens? What is Southern Florida like?
Let's see. Well, there's a couple things. Southern Florida. Well, it's in the middle. So
Orlando is it in the middle?
Yeah, it's in the middle, so it's not on the shore.
But I mean, it's hot. It's
humid. Yeah,
it's swampy.
It is swampy.
It's hurricanes. So you know, you build a museum, you put your stuff there. I mean, granted, they've had their stuff there in their house, so I mean, okay, but a hurricane could wipe it out.
It could. I mean, Orlando is no. You know what? That's not. All right, so you know what's protected? You're not going to get that the what they call the eye wall or whatever it is, where the water rushes in because it's all the pressure and the storm front
Yeah.
usually will flood the shores, but they're not going to get that. But still, I mean, they're still going to get the 200-mile-an-hour winds.
But here's the thing, though. Even if you don't get wiped out by the hurricane, what happens when the power goes out? You
Yeah.
know, okay, sure, put a generator in and everything. But the thing is, I know this from as a collector, paper is very hard to take care of.
Mm-hmm.
You've got to keep it away from the sun because sun will destroy everything.
Oh, yeah.
And most importantly, you've got to keep it away from humidity.
Humidity. That's something that Florida might have some stuff of.
What does Florida have? Sun and humidity.
Yeah,
So
yes,
you're going to have to put this museum in a building that is either windowless or has such incredibly museum quality protection. I mean, museums don't typically put their stuff near big windows, so
No.
you know, hopefully a windowless area. But even still, let's say you've got great climate control and you just perfectly dial in that humidity all year round, and then the power goes out for a week.
Right. You get up everything. Just
yeah. So for their collection, what they've got, look, they've got a lot of rare stuff, but it's almost all published stuff. Nothing is a one-off, unique. There's no personal letters from Gary. There's no I don't know, Skip Williams underwear or whatever. You know, there's nothing
that you would see in like a museum. Like
right.
Like the Constitution when you go to,
Right.
get in Smithsonian.
Yeah. So, you know, I think I think Florida is a very bad place to put a museum of paper.
Right.
That's what I will say.
The only thing I agreed with, because I did read some of this stuff that they were talking about, the reasons for having it in Florida. I do agree with some of the logistics of it, in that if you had it like in Milwaukee, right, it's very hard to get people to travel to Milwaukee to go look at a museum. Whereas people go to Orlando all the time. It's one of the biggest tourist spots in the world. So it's, people are going to go there. Like, you're going to wind up going to Orlando at some point, probably. Easily.
I'm not, but yeah.
You're not, but I mean, but a lot of people do. Like I've been down there not for vacation. I've been down there for work multiple times.
Yeah, I've been there for work. I worked for Disney for about a year. So
okay, so while I was working, but there's a bunch of military stuff down there too. I went down for some training thing for the military and wound up in Orlando. I was like, wow, that's kind of weird that I'm in Orlando. But anyway, the point I'm just trying to say is that it is a destination for a lot of people. So I could see them getting more foot traffic in that. But that's the only thing I agree with. I agree with you in that it is not the best place to put a friggin' museum.
Yeah, I mean, when we're talking about places that are out of the way, the Strong Museum of Play is in Rochester, New York. Nobody goes there. I don't even know
where Rochester is.
I mean, unless you're going there for the hospital, so it's very out of the way. And I would say that Chicago would be a very good place to put a D&D museum. You get lots of people in Chicago. It's close enough to the Midwest. So I guess I wish them the best of luck with doing this museum. I hope that they are able to, because they got their stuff anyways, might as well let the public see it. But if anybody is, for some coincidental reason, listening to this show and thinking about donating something rare to them, don't do it. Do not send them your bottle of Gary Gygax sweat, or whatever it is that you have, because I think that they are I think they're trustworthy and responsible people that would treat the stuff well that they got, but I just don't think it's the location to do it.
Right.
And it doesn't sound like they're very good at raising money. I hate to say that because I'm not very good at raising money. I don't want to.
Yeah, we're terrible at it.
I'm not trying to, call the kettle black or whatever. But good for them. I hope it works. Everybody, if you have a big collection of D&D stuff, go open a museum and we'll visit it.
Right. All right. Well, that's it for tonight.
That's all our stories.
That's what we got. I'm glad everybody joined us. We actually had quite a few. Thanks everybody. Brian, Chet.
Yeah.
Ed.
So remember, if David, you are so inclined, please go to our Patreon and join. It's free. You can also give us money and get stuff, but you don't have to pay to join.
Yeah, you don't have to pay to join. And we do give stuff away to the free folks too. Just gave a really good one away this week or this month.
Bottle of Gary Gygax sweat for
Yeah,
everybody who's on it.
his bathwater next week.
Yeah, got a lot of that. Got some Elvis hairs. No, but we do have good stuff. And if you are listening on the podcast, please leave us a review on Apple Music. I don't even know if we have any. I've never looked. And if you're on YouTube, like and subscribe and do those things because it really helps.
It does help.
And if you are a Patreon member, paid member, you can join us in the Discord in about 5 minutes. I'm going to just take time to make another drink, and then we'll be over there, and we will both be completely nude. So check it out.
Yeah.
100% true. I wouldn't lie about that.
Never. All right, man. See y'all.